Hey guys, this morning I want to talk about making wrong decisions, making right decisions. And what I've learned is that we make wrong decisions when we give something some value that it doesn't deserve. When we overvalue something, then we head down the wrong decision-making path. And because of the value we've assigned to that thing, because we've overvalued it, we make wrong decisions related to it. And we make wrong decisions related to it because once we've assigned that value that's too high, our emotions follow the value we give it. Let me give you an example from my life. I was a missionary in Taiwan for 7 years. I got married to Yen Ling, my wife, and we had our first daughter. Then we had our second daughter, and our second daughter had special needs. And I was 29 years old, and it started to hit me that I was a missionary. I didn't make a lot of money. I had a daughter, two daughters, and married, but also one daughter with special needs, medical needs. And I started to think to myself, I started to get anxious, started to get nervous, I started to worry, what is the future going to look like? Like, how am I going to go from here, especially if I continue to stay in Taiwan, if I continue to be a missionary? What's the future going to look like in terms of how much money I can earn? In terms of my ability, if we need to get back to the United States and tap into the resources there medically? Am I going to be able to do that if I stay here till I'm 35 or 40 or 45? You know, when she starts to get 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, and maybe needs things that in Taiwan I might not have access to, or I might not have the resources or the financial resources to provide for her. So I started to give value to money, to career, to my personal success, to my personal ability to provide for my family and provide for my daughter. That was way over the value it actually deserved. And I started to give value to the fear of what could happen with her medically. I started to give value to all the things that we would typically say that makes sense. Yeah, you probably did need to start thinking about how much money you were making, or if you had the right health insurance, or if you had the right medical resources, etc. I gave it to the things that we typically think you should, but we actually shouldn't, because God is in control and can do anything. And this is the story of what happens in the Bible over and over. We've got these people who are following God, or God has called them to follow Him. And at one moment they're trusting Him, and then something happens in their life, some challenge, something difficult. And often because they get scared, they start assigning value to something that doesn't deserve that high of a value. Their emotions follow that level of value, and they start to make decisions to try to take control of the situation that get them into a position that is way outside of God's will for their life. I want to come back to my story, but first dig into Jacob's story in Genesis, and there's a few parts. The first part we know is that Jacob essentially stole Esau's blessing. And we know this happened because Rebekah, his mom, valued her son Jacob over her son Esau, and she realized that her husband Isaac was about to give away the blessing. So Rebekah calls Jacob and says, now just do whatever I tell you, because essentially you've got to have this blessing because you're my favorite son, and so I've got to take control of the situation and make sure you get it. So she dresses him up in Esau's clothing, and he does get the blessing, but then he's got to run away from home and be away from home for what ends up being something like 25 or 30 years on the run and scared. And then the second time, and there's many times that we see it, but then the next time that we see it is in chapter 29 of Genesis in verse 31, when Jacob has married Leah and Rachel, and he actually got tricked into doing that, but he's married to both of them. But God only gives Leah children, and Rachel He does not allow to have children. And it says that when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, He enabled her to have children, but Rachel could not conceive, because Jacob was so in love with Rachel. And you're going to find that he does that. He plays favorites again with his sons as well, and that also gets them in trouble. But he so valued Rachel, and it's good to value your wife. It's good to love your spouse. But he so valued her that he made Leah feel lower, Rachel higher. And the problem with that is not making one feel higher and one feel lower. It's that Jacob didn't value God in the right place and his wives in the right place. They're valuable. Your spouse is valuable, but God's this valuable. They're this valuable. And if you have God in the proper position, you're not going to play favorites or overvalue anybody else in the wrong way. God responded to that and it didn't work out well. Here's the last one I'll give you. In chapter 37 of Genesis, in verse 3, it says, Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children, just like he did with Rachel versus Leah, because Joseph had been born in his old age. And so one day Jacob made a special gift for Joseph, a beautiful robe, but his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. It's the same story. He got this son of promise. He's got this son in his old age. He got this miracle son. And when God blessed him in this incredible way, instead of Jacob falling more in love with God, instead of Jacob going, wow, God, thank you for the miracle that you brought into my life. I do love him. I love him as much as all the sons you've given me. But you are who I love and I look up to and I worship and adore and I'm overwhelmed with. And when you're in this position, you're not going to make wrong decisions because you're not giving value to the things around you and on earth that don't deserve that value. What we do over and over again in our life is give too much value to something that doesn't deserve it and too little value to something that deserves all value. And when we do that, our emotions follow that thing and we make wrong decisions because we're focused on the wrong thing. And that's what Jacob did. And then the result, Joseph, because his brothers hate him, is then sold into slavery. And of course, God works all that for good. And God can do that in your life, no matter how you act or what what decisions you make. He can work it for good. But that happened. And Joseph's head got way too big and he needed to be humbled and he acted in the wrong way and he said the wrong things. And it was all spurred on and instigated because Jacob valued him to such a degree that Jacob's emotions followed. He gave his one son something he shouldn't have done. I mean, we all know that. I don't go out and get ice cream for one kid unless that's that kid's date, date to have a date. Anyway, I'd get them all ice cream, right? I don't give one kid dinner and the other kids don't get dinner, right? We know this logically. He acted illogically because he gave too much value to something that didn't deserve that value. We act illogically when we give something more value than it deserves. And what we do over and over again in our lives is the things around us we start worrying about it, or we get too excited about it, or we're totally passionate about it and in love with it, or we're anxious about it, or we're afraid about it. And in doing any of those things, we give it way more value than it deserves, and we give him a lot less value because it's a scale kind of like this. And when you overvalue a situation or someone or a decision, your emotions are going to follow. You're going to make the wrong decision. You're not going to be hearing from God. But if instead, whether you're deciding, am I supposed to get married to this person? If you're deciding, am I supposed to move to this place? Am I supposed to take this job? Am I supposed to, say this one thing to this person? I don't know if I should talk to this friend about this thing where I feel like he's wrong me or whatever it is. If you're overvaluing it, if you're giving it too much emotion, if you're relying on it in too big of a way, you're going to make a wrong decision. But if instead, the entire time you're like, I'm in love with God. I recognize that situation is happening around me, and I recognize I need to deal with it. But I am so in love with God. I am so in awe with him. My eyes are so fixed on heaven that I am able to have a clear head, not be ruled by my emotions, hear his voice, and then act from the throne room of heaven. I mean, this is what Jesus said in his prayer when he said, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. I mean, we're in awe of you. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth in my life as it is in heaven. What Jesus is saying is, I value you more than anything else. I give you so much value that I can see myself essentially up there with you in the throne room. And the Bible says we should boldly enter the throne room. So Jesus saying, I'm up there with you in heaven. And Jesus is saying, I can see things here on earth from your perspective. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth. I can see how you're seeing things, and therefore I'm able to operate in the world around me in the way that that you would guide me to operate, instead of saying, his prayer was not, Billy, who art on earth, I am great. Hallowed be my name. I value me. My kingdom come. My will be done. Whatever I want on this earth in my life, that's what I'm working for. By the way, God, when I get in trouble, please come help me. He didn't pray that. And you might say, well, of course he wouldn't pray that, and we don't pray that. But that's how we act. Do you get it? The way that we act is that we're most valuable. My life is most valuable. My kid's life is most valuable. My spouse is most valuable. The things that are most valuable to me in life are the most valuable things that I have. And I'm going to make decisions to make sure those things survive, to make sure those things thrive. And that's where we get in trouble, because now we're not saying, my Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth. Now I'm not saying my eyes are fixed on you, and you are the one that has all value, so I want to make all decisions related even to the things I love most based on how you would have me make them. To close out my story from the beginning, I decided to start studying to take the GMAT so I could get into business school. And then I went to a great business school. And then when I got to business school, guys, get this, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. Most other people knew what they wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. There's only one thing I knew. I wanted to make as much money as possible. I didn't care if I liked it. I didn't even try to figure out if it fit in my wheelhouse or something like that. I just asked everybody around me, what is the hardest internship to get? They named a couple, and I got one of them. And I worked my butt off to take control of my life so that the things that I was most scared about and the things that I valued most here on earth would not hurt me, and they would not be hurt, because now I'm in control, because I built up my resume strong enough so that I can make as much money as possible, so I can have great health insurance and tons of money, and I'll never have to worry again, because my gaze and my focus and my fear and even my ambition and the things that I value were what were on around me. And I totally missed God's unique and awesome plan for my life, because I didn't live like this. God, you are the one that holds all value. I am totally in love with you. If I have 3 daughters and I'm married, if 2 of those daughters have special needs, you're going to provide, because you're the king of all the earth. You created the universe. You own the cattle on the 1,000 hills. I never have to worry, because you're in love with me and I'm in love with you. And if you say that you love me as much as you say you do, and you value me as much as you say you do, and if Matthew 6 says that you're going to provide for all my needs, if I will seek your kingdom first, I can worry about nothing. And therefore, with a clear head and clearly seeing what heaven sees and living from your throne room to earth, I can make every decision without any anxiety, fear, or ambition for myself and for others, but only for you. Then I can operate well in life. But if I'm looking around me at the things around me and say, oh my goodness, I've got 2 daughters with special needs, and I've got 3 kids altogether and a wife, and I'm just making a missionary salary, and I'm 29 years old, and it's better be time to make a change in my life, or the trajectory of my life till I'm 50 is going to be to have no control and no say and no money and no health insurance and no medical provider. What in the world am I going to do? It's a totally different way of doing life depending on what you value and the amount of value you give it and where your eyes are fixed. So fix your eyes on heaven. Give God the value he deserves, and stop giving the things around you, even the things you love most, more value than they deserve. And when you do that, you'll stop making wrong decisions, and you'll hear what heaven says. And you'll see what heaven sees. And you'll operate from a heaven perspective. And then you will live a life that is very outside. Isaiah 55 says, God says, my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. I'm going to do life differently. But when you follow God, it's going to be different, and people will question. But when you do that, he's going to take you to a place where all those things you value around you are taken care of better than you could ever do yourself. So start making the decisions he would have you make. by valuing him more than anything else. And all those things you value around you, he will take care of them and you too.